Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new session of Net Revision. And a very happy Diwali to all of you and your family members. Have a very safe Diwali and a joyous one. So, today we are back with a new revision session for Net exam. And here with me is Ananya.
Hello, everyone, and a very happy Diwali to all of you.
So, Ananya, shall we start the session?
Right.
Okay. I really hope all of you are watching the sessions regularly, and I really hope these sessions will benefit you immensely, right? So, without further ado, let's get started with our session today. So, yes, I welcome you all to Vallath December Net Revision Session 6. And let's move on to our first question.
That Long Silence by Shashi Deshpande was published in Dash. Was it in 1980 or 1985 or 1988 or 1992?
So, years of Indian novels or English novels are very, very important. They will ask you such questions. We know that. So, that Long Silence was published in which year? Tell us. Yes, it was published in 1988. It's a very prominent novel by Shashi Deshpande. Okay, here we see that Joya's life comes apart, right? It talks about her psychological life as well, and also the family life, or rather how her psychological life impacts her personal life, right? So that Long Silence by Shashi Deshpande was published in 1988. Okay, next.
Culture and Society is a book published in 1958 by Welsh progressive writer Raymond Williams, exploring how the notion of culture developed in Great Britain from dash. Now, is it 14th to 16th centuries or 18th to 20th centuries or 16th to 19th centuries or 19th to 20th centuries? Culture and Society.
Yes. So Raymond Williams, as you all know, he is a very prominent cultural theorist and scholar of the 28th century, and he has written many books, right? He has written many books. One of the most popular among them is Culture and Society. This book was published in 1958, and here he talks about a certain time period, right? I'm very sorry for this disturbance, which might be coming from my side because of the crackers, going. Everyone is busting crackers like crazy. So I'm really sorry if there is any disturbance from my side. But yes, let's proceed. So, in this particular work, he talks about a particular time period and how the idea of culture developed and flourished within that particular era or within that particular time period. So, yes, here he talks about from 18th to 20th centuries, right? And he focuses on this time period in connection to how culture flourished during this time. And he argues that the notion of culture developed in response to the Industrial Revolution and the social and political changes it brought in its wake. This is done through a series of studies of famous British writers and essays, including Edmund Burke, William Cobbett, Blake, Wordsworth, F.R. Lewis, George Orwell, and Christopher Caldwell. So, yes, and it's very important to remember that here he talks about the notion of culture from 18th to 20th centuries. Clear? Raymond Williams is a very important theorist and scholar. To look up all of his works in the correct chronology. Right. Next.
Which character of Dickens among the following has been described as a squeezing, wrenching, grasping, scraping, clutching, covetous old sinner? Now, is it Mr. Pickwick, Mr. Brownlow, Ebenezer Scrooge, or Mr. Magwitch?
So, Dickens was one of the most popular novelists of the Victorian era, He has created hundreds of characters through his novels, right? And here it was Ebenezer Scrooge who has been described as a squeezing, wrenching, grasping, scraping, clutching, covetous old sinner, right? So Ebenezer Scrooge is a fictional character and protagonist of Charles Dickens's 1843 short novel, A Christmas Carol. Initially a cold-hearted miser who despises Christmas, his redemption by three spirits has become a defining tale of the Christmas holiday in the English-speaking world. Dickens describes Scrooge thus early in the story as this: the cold within him froze his old features, nipped his pointed nose, shriveled his cheek, stiffened his gait, made his eyes red, his thin lips blue, and spoke out shrewdly in his grating voice. Towards the end of the novella, the three spirits show Scrooge the errors of his ways and he becomes a better, more generous man. Okay, and this is a very famous phrase from this novel, that he is a squeezing, wrenching, grasping, scraping, clutching, covetous old sinner. Ebenezer Scrooge from A Christmas Carol of Dickens. Right, next.
The Foundling is a classic fairy tale set in the imagined kingdom of Waldopolis by Dash. Now, is it Charlotte Bronte, Emily Bronte, Jane Austen, or Maria Edgeworth?
So, mostly when we talk about Brontes, like Charlotte Bronte, Emily Bronte, we mostly talk about the novels like Jane Eyre or Wuthering Heights or The Professor or Shirley. And when we talk about Jane Austen or Maria Edgeworth, again, we'll also talk about the novels like Sense and Sensibility, Emma, Mansfield Park, right? But it's very important to also know about the minor works of these major writers. So the Foundling, it's a classic fairy tale set in the imagined kingdom of Verdopolis by Charlotte Bronte. Okay, it's a very popular fairy tale by Charlotte Bronte. Clear? Yes. Next.
The Giller Prize is a literary award given to A/An dash author of a novel or short story collection published in English, including translation, the previous year after an annual juried competition between publishers who submit entries. Now, is it British, American, Indian, or Canadian?
So the question is, people of which countries or writers of which country can get this prize? So the Giller Prize is a literary award which is given to a Canadian author of a novel or short story collection published in English. Okay. So generally, Giller prizes are given to Canadian people. Okay. The prize, this Giller Prize, was established in 1994 by Toronto businessman Jack Rabinovich in honor of his late wife Doris Giller, a former literary editor at the Toronto Star, and is awarded in November of each year, along with a cash reward, with the winner being presented by the previous year's winning author. So, Giller Prize is given to Canadian authors. As you have seen that recently, it has become very important to know about various literary awards, honors, and prizes. Okay, in India, we talk about Sahitya Academy Award, right? Then we talk about Booker Prizes, uh, Pulitzer Prizes, right? So it's very important to explore more about these prizes, to talk about these various honors like poet laureates. Okay, so these areas are also becoming very important for exams like NET, SET, and other stuff. So please look up such in detail about such prizes, awards, honors. Okay, right. So before we proceed, let me give you all this important information. that from today onwards, we have started our NTA Net English recap course. Here, what you will you get? Here you will get live recap sessions, GRF power sessions, topic-wise quizzes, and also model tests. Okay, so if you haven't joined the recap course yet, you can do so from our official website vallath.in. And if you need any further information about this course, you can contact at the given number. All right, so do consider joining this course. Okay, next.
Beastly Tales from Here and There is a 1992 collection of 10 fables in poetry written by Dash. Is it Amitav Ghosh, Vikram Seth, Amish Tripathi, or none of the above?
Yes, so it's a work by Vikram Sheth. This work was written by Vikram Sheth, and in the introduction of this work, Vikram Sheth writes that the first two come from India. That is, the first two tales come from India, the next two from China, the next two from Greece, the next two from Ukraine. The final two came directly to me from the land of Gap. Here, Vikram Sheth's sense of humor is exemplified by his retelling of the well-known fable of the tortoise and the hare. In his version, the loser, being a celebrity, is fated and the winner ignored. So you can also look up the list of the 10 stories which are there in that story collection by Vikram Sheth. Yes, next.
The Conservationist is a Dash novel by the South African writer Nadine Gordimer. Is it in 1970, 1974, 1978, or 1982?
Okay. So Nadine Gordimer is very important when we study about African literature. She was a South African writer, right? So The Conservationist is one of the most popular novels by Nadine Gordimer, and it was published in 1974. It was published in 1974, and in this novel we see that in South Africa, under apartheid, Mering is a rich white businessman who is not satisfied with his life. His ex-wife has gone to America. His liberal son Terry criticizes his conservative capitalist ways, and his lovers and colleagues do not actually seem interested in him. On a whim, he buys a 400-acre farm outside the city, afterwards trying to explain this purchase to himself as a search for a higher meaning in life. But it is clear that he knows next to nothing about farming and that black workers run it. Mering is simply an outsider, an intruder on the daily life of his farm. So again, it talks about the identity politics in a society where there is almost a tussle between the whites and the blacks, right? The apartheid regime is going on in South Africa, and the consequent identity politics it gives birth to, right? The Conservationist, a very important work by Nadine Gordimer, published in 1974. Okay.
The Country Wife is a restoration comedy written by Dash and first performed in 1975. Was it written by William Wycherley, or Congreve, or George Etheridge, or John Van Brocke?
So, in almost every NET exam, questions come from this area of restoration comedy, and they mostly ask such questions in the form of match the following. Okay, so just please try to remember who wrote which restoration comedy. The Country Wife, it's a very popular restoration comedy by William Wycherley. It's a product of the tolerant early Restoration period, and the play reflects aristocratic and anti-Puritan ideology and was controversial for its sexual explicitness even in its own time. This title, The Country Wife, contains a lewd pun with regard to the first syllable of the country. It is based on several plays by Moliere, with added features that 1670s London audiences demanded, like colloquial prose dialogue in place of Moliere's verse, a complicated fast paced plot tangle, and many sex jokes. Sex jokes were almost a very central element in restoration comedies. So again, The Country Wife, a very important restoration comedy by William Y. Shirley. Okay, next.
Which among the following is not a morality play? Is it The Castle of Perseverance, Mind, Will, and Understanding, Mankind, or The Four Ps?
So as you all know, morality play. I'm very sure that all of you are very much aware about this particular genre. Morality plays were allegorical plays which were popular in 15th and 16th centuries in Europe, right? They were a way to teach moral principles and church doctrine to the public through a theatrical representation, where various abstract qualities like various virtues and vices were presented as characters. Okay, so these were allegorical plays which were meant to convey certain moral lessons to the contemporary audience. So here the Castle of Perseverance, Mind, Will, and Understanding, Mankind, all these are morality plays. But the Four Ps by John Haywood, it was an interlude. And interludes were meant to be played in between the plays. So it was not a morality play, it was rather an interlude by John Haywood. The Four Ps. Other than that, the three options above, these were very famous morality plays. Clear? Okay.
Who among the following is associated with the theoretical concept of uncanny? Now, is it Lacan, Freud, Jung, or Melanie Klein?
Okay. So here you can see in the options that we have mainly taken psychologists, psychoanalysts. So the uncanny, it was Sigmund Freud who talked about the concept of the uncanny. And for him, the uncanny is like an idea beyond one's ken, something outside one's familiar knowledge or perceptions. Freud noted the German unheimlich as the antonym of heimlich or the homely. A more literal rendering of the psychoanalytic concept of the uncanny word would therefore be unhomeliness. So, to put it simply, this theoretical concept of uncanny, which was propounded by Freud, it literally means something which is unknown to you, something with which you are not really accustomed, or something which is unfamiliar to you, right? Okay.
When I consider how my light is spent, is a dash of John Milton. Now, is it political pamphlet? Is it a religious pamphlet? Is it a sonnet? Or is it a delivered speech?
So when I consider how my light is spent, it's a very popular sonnet by John Milton, and the last three lines are particularly well known. They conclude with, "They also serve who only stand and wait." And this is a very quoted, though rarely in context, line from John Milton's sonnet, "When I consider how my light is spent." It's a sonnet by Milton. Okay.
Who wrote Strictures on the Modern System of Female Education? Is it Fanny Burney, Hannah More, Mary Wollstonecraft, or Afra Ben?
So it was Hannah More who wrote Strictures on the Modern System of Female Education. Hannah More was an English religious writer, philanthropist, poet, and playwright in the circle of Samuel Johnson, Reynolds, and Garrick, who wrote on moral and religious subjects. She was born in Bristol and she taught at a school her father founded there and began writing plays. She became involved in the London literary elite and a leading Blue Stocking member. Remember the Blue Stockings Club of the women? So she was a leading member of that club. Her later plays and poetry became more evangelical. She joined a group opposing the slave trade And in the 1970s, she wrote cheap repository tracts on moral, religious, and political topics to distribute to the literate poor. Meanwhile, she broadened her links with schools she and her sister Martha had founded in rural Somerset. This curbed the teaching of the poor, allowing limited reading but no writing. Moore was noted for her political conservatism, being described as an anti feminist, a counter revolutionary, or a conservative feminist. Hannah More is a very important figure. We don't talk about her very widely, or she's not a very popular figure of her time, but she's a very important figure, undoubtedly. So do look up such figures like Hannah More. Right? We talk a lot about Mary Wollstonecraft, Aphra Behn, Fanny Burney, Jane Austen, but we rarely talk about these figures, right? So please read about these figures as well, because Net can ask questions from these gray areas also, right? So do look up such authors. Okay. So that's all from our side for tonight. And before we wrap up, do consider enrolling for our recap course. It has started from today, and you can do so from our official website, vallath.in, or you can contact the given number if you have any further queries. So that's all for tonight from our side. I really hope you guys like the session. Do like this video and share this with your friends. And so let's wrap up, Ananya, for tonight.
Yes, good night, everyone.
Yes, good night and take care. Bye.